Hello, and welcome to another Daily Code Fun. I am One Lion, and this is the splash screen. This is looking out over London and the United Kingdom. That is very nice looking. No idea how long ago this was, but it is really pretty. I like it a lot. Anyway, welcome. Hello, Zulius. No worries for the distraction. As you know, I am very interested in all things related to AR and VR. If you do have just resources and stuff and things that you think are interesting, just put them in the resources or share it any or something. You don't have to tag me. I will see them. If you tag me, it makes me feel like it's something that I need to respond to right away. But yeah. Why does it say that I'm hosting Findle? Hello? Okay, there we go. That's better. I'm still getting things opened because, as you know, I tend to keep going with whatever I'm working on until the last minute. Pop out. Close that. Put you over here. Boop. Enhance. Cool. Okay, so when last we spoke, we were working on describing the project that we want to do. Why didn't that apply? Apply. That's, there it goes. Okay. So I need my pen. これはペンです。Huh? I'm not sure I understood that phrase. The tag was more for the question of your presence of mine in the channel, since that would have made any explanations obsolete. Oh, yeah, so you were tagging me to see if I was in C# Fritz's channel, not necessarily about the Stereo Kid stuff. Cool. But yeah, I really wasn't paying attention to his stuff that he's doing. It does look really interesting and fun because he's working on a for real project. We're working on a for real project, but it's still kind of one that we're doing on our own that's not intended to be anything, I don't know, crazy, massive. Ooh, where are we now? But hopefully it can be used as a learning tool. And oh, we're still in the UK. A place called Kupar. But it's also to show you kind of like the thought process that I go through, and maybe it's something that you could adopt elements of if you like certain pieces of it. Otherwise, if you don't like it, then you could just be like, well, here's how I do it instead. But yeah, I wonder if there's a way in Whiteboard to follow someone. Is that a thing? It kind of doesn't look like it. It'd be nice. But anyway, I'm going to show my screen now. So, what we talked about yesterday was, what is our project going to be? What is the stream project that we are working together on so that we can see Blazor in action? That is a lot of stuff open there, buddy. I want this window. This window? That doesn't seem right. How about this one? Look, a new tab. And a new window. Yeah, cookies. GitHub.com/onelion. So I talked about the fact that we're going to be doing a financial tracker app. I called it financial management, and I'm like, this really is just a financial tracker, but at the same time, it is financial management, so I don't know. I'm going to call it both, and hopefully it's not too confusing. It's financial management tracker, or financial management, or just financial tracker. They're all going to be the same thing, or financial management tracking. Good grief. I did not realize that I called it so many different things. You know what? Oh, I can't do that because I have a... Oh, no. At the end of yesterday's stream, we checked in. Good grief, where is this? We checked in. Waiting for it to load. Okay, here we are. Git changes. What branch are we on? And are we pulled to the latest? Yes. The two hardest problems in computer science. 1, no reference exceptions. 2, naming things. 3, off by 1 errors. I love it. I love it. Okay, this needs to go like this. Why aren't you open all the way? Git says we are on master branch. That's the only branch that exists. And we are on latest. So I'm actually going to make the change here. I'm going to add one more solution folder called docs. And I will add, not existing project, existing item. The readme from here. Okay, so this is going to say financial management tracker. You're going to say tracker. Is there anywhere else in here that says tracking? No. Everything else says financial management tracker. So that means I'm going to update this to be that. Done. Move. Toast. Toast. Change the title of the video. And there we go. Hopefully that makes everything consistent, except for the project itself, which is just FinanMan, which I'm okay with. Okay, so that's going to be part, actually, I'm just going to check that in now. To master, updated project name in README. The end. I'm going to commit and push so that we can create a branch for whatever we're going to do next. Why? What? Added README to solution. Why didn't it do that at the same time as the previous? Whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's done. It's over. Everything is over. Okay, so I'm in Visual Studio and all, but we aren't going to be in Visual Studio for a minute because we still have to continue on with our design process. I think it was Zulius yesterday that mentioned UML diagrams. And I'm not doing UML diagrams. I am just designing based off of what feels right to me. But if you want to do this the absolute correct computer science way, you would do all of your use case diagrams, all of your flow diagrams, your state diagrams, your UI diagrams, everything. ER diagrams and your architecture, but I'm just not. Too bad for me. Oh, I hate that. I selected all of these. You should now let me drag and drop you without doing another selection. Okay, so that's going to go there. No. Oh man, I have the best aim ever. Okay, so this is going to be the project structure. We talked through the project structure yesterday. Wait, I opened GitHub for a reason. We talked through what the requirements of the financial management tracker application are and what we really want to use this application for. Then we created a brand new project in Visual Studio and just kind of moved the projects out into the project structure that I like to use, which when I have a Blazor WebAssembly and a Blazor server project side by side, I put them in their individual folders. And then I have a separate Razor class library for the user interface portion of it. And what I think I'm going to do actually is have even one more folder. Dang it, I don't want to do it here. I want to create my branch for this. So I'm already making changes that I don't want to make yet, but we're going to create a new branch called setup database, because that's what we're working on today. Spoiler alert. All right, now in this branch, I'm going to create a folder called Blazor Web that I'm putting in the Blazor server and Blazor WebAssembly projects, because in the future, I plan on having the Maui application in here as well to use the exact same UI for deploying when we were deploying while we were targeting Android, Windows, iOS, Mac, etc., etc. Celia says, back in school, one of my classmates found this awesome UML extension for VS Code where you could design the whole thing using Markdown, if I recall correctly. That sounds fun-ish. You know what else sounds fun? The fact that the Signal R library that has the hub in it is deprecated. What? Anyway, so we talked about the requirements of the app. I talked about the project structure that I'm using when using both a Blazor server and Blazor WebAssembly project side by side with a shared UI library, a couple of shared class libraries, and then a database project. The next thing that I'd like to tackle today is shapes. I'd like to tackle shapes today. Why is that in the way? Why are you still in the way? All right, so this is maybe not as intuitive as I thought it was going to be to use, but that's okay. Didn't I just put no? What happened to my no background? I clicked on no background just then. I don't know what's going on, man. It seems kind of buggy, but it could just be me. I could be using it incorrectly. I have been known to do this. But the next thing that I would like to do for this app is start coming up with some ideas for what we need for our database tables and such. So to do that, I'm going to grab my handy little pencil here, my digital pen, scoot everything over. Ooh, hopefully you didn't hear that. That was really loud. So I have a pen. これは pen です. And so this is going to be our database design. What? So my handwriting is bad enough as it is. I don't need you like slipping on stuff. So this would be the equivalent of an ER diagram, I guess. But the first thing that I'd like to think of are what tables are we going to use? What tables are we going to use? We're going to use apparently total amount invested, expenses. No, we're not going to use that. Prog testing. Anyway, hi prog testing. I was going to say that people that use computers usually have bad penmanship. I could write neater. Yeah, I could. I just don't. I'm too lazy to. And let's face it, my neatest attempt at writing is still pretty sloppy. So, but hi, Junicus. Welcome to the Daily Code Fun. I hope you are having a fantastic Thursday. If it is still Thursday for you. If you're not like in Australia or something. I have no idea what part of the world would be tomorrow already. Japan? It's only 10:47 a.m. where I am. So we'd have to go back quite a bit. Is it only Wednesday? Okay, good. It is Thursday. So we are actually doing a project. If you weren't here for the beginning, we're actually doing a full-on full stack project using Blazor, targeting both Blazor WebAssembly and Blazor Server. And we will eventually add a Maui project to it. And we're going to use exactly the same UI with maybe different functionality, different service implementations. You had an overnight install and my days are running together. Oh man. I know that feeling, but I hope it's gonna go well for you. Okay, so the database, we need to decide what tables, what objects we're gonna need to keep track of. Well, we are doing financial tracking. And so one of the core entities that we would assume we have for financial events is an account that financial event is associated with. So we're going to have an account. And on top of that, we would want to know maybe what the account type is. So instead of having a willy-nilly free form text input, we're going to have a list of accounts that we can manage and choose from. So we'll have an account type lookup table. And so from these accounts, we can have various actions performed on them. And those actions are going to be performed with respect to some other entity that we will be interacting with. So, of course, as you would imagine, I have a solution-ish that I'm using for this type of project, but it's an Access database. And so I have tables and stuff already in mind based off of what I'm already using, but the name of the table that I have for this entity is pay to. So if anyone wants to try helping with this, we can come up with a better name. But these are things like Wendy's, Lowe's, recipient. Recipient, that's a good name. Recipient? Question mark? Okay, what would break the word recipient here? So these aren't just places that we are paying. Oh, yeah, they are. These could also be other accounts, which would still be a recipient. Yeah, I think that's a really good word. I like it. So unless someone else comes up with a better name, I think we're going to go with recipient. I'll get rid of this question mark. Junicus was saying, I'm waiting for the VS part to go out of beta to get into Maui. Yeah, exactly. We should only have to wait for a month. I think it's coming out next month. It would be awesome if it actually does. There is also still a possibility that we'll have to wait until .NET Conf in November with the release of .NET 7. I hope not. But based off of their previous schedule for Visual Studio releases, I think we're gonna get Visual Studio version 17, Visual Studio 2022 version 17 next month. And that's also what it sounded like they were talking about during MS Build and over the past couple of months. Okay, but anyway, recipient. The other thing is we need to know what category, maybe, those recipients are. Are they a grocery store? Are they general goods? Convenience store? Whatever categories you want to come up with. What is they? So we could put something like recipient category. I kind of don't like that. I think I actually want to call this transaction category because we might want to associate more than one category with a given transaction. But Broken Sword is here. Hello, Broken Sword. Junicus said to Zulia, first Zulia said to Junicus, I did too, but caved in last week to finally get started. It's pretty cool. It's pretty easy. Then Junicus said to Zulius, I tried it on my Mac with VS Code, but I've always had issues with VS Code and C#. I don't really like the experience. But yeah, Junicus, the actual Visual Studio IDE preview, even for Mac, I believe, supports Maui development. And there really isn't any reason not to install it side by side with your existing installations of Visual Studio. Pay2 is actually the recipient. So we're calling that recipient now. Hello. Oh. You can't use the cursor pointer thing. That sucks. Oh, but you can select like that, but I won't be able to drag, will I? I didn't think so. Anyway, so yeah, I've never actually tried doing a Maui project in VS Code. but I assume that it won't have the same tooling either. It'll still have a lot of the same issues that Visual Studio by itself has with the Maui project. And then needing to know what the actual command line parameters are for doing a .NET build using the CLI for a Maui application when you're targeting specific platforms. That's fun. But Broken Sword was saying, yay, we're doing database design. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Anyway, can you even read this? Not because of my handwriting, because of the size of the text. You probably can't read it because of my handwriting. But Zulius was saying to Junicus, Mac, I have no experience with that. And then to Junicus, although the features Apple showed for their new OS versions a few weeks back looked really neat. It was a statement. That was a full statement. I was reading it like it was the beginning of a statement. Although the features... Okay, anyway. Then Junicus said to Zulius, it's not bad, but I think VS Code is great for web stuff, but .NET is maybe a bit lacking. Then Zulius said, yeah, fully agree. For full .NET stuff, you're really still best off with VS on Windows. And then Junicus said, there is a small reason if you're having space issues on your laptop, but that is neither here nor there. Just going to wait now. Oh, yeah. Okay, so in response to why not run both Visual Studio Preview and Visual Studio Community side by side, or whatever version, non-preview side by side, and it's if you don't have space on your computer, which makes perfect sense. And then I do have an app that I might want to try, but I did it with a different technology. Zulia said, should be less than a month now. Maui tooling is expected with VS 17.4. True, which is what current VS, which is what current VS Preview is going to turn into next month. Supposedly. Yeah, that's what I kind of mentioned. And unless there are extenuating circumstances that prevent the release of Maui tooling with Visual Studio 17. So hopefully we do get it. So back to our design. We have an account type, the recipient, and this is just going to be a list of category. Again, naming things. Naming things is hard. So as we go along, you'll find out what category is supposed to be used for, but we will also have the actual transaction table that will be the top level thing that associates extenuating circumstances, but those never happened in the history of Maui development. Junicus said, yeah, I hope it goes that way. Anyways, I did my app with Tauri. I've never heard of Tauri. Tauri. And React. Happy with the result. So transaction will have the account and recipient information and the date of transaction. And I'm sure that there's other things. Not like Maui should have been live like last year already. As, what was it called? Blazor. I can't even think of the name of it. Gosh, totally blanking on it, but that's okay. I don't need to think about it. So this transaction here is not going to contain the actual details of the transaction because this is just going to be the top level information for the transaction itself. Then we will have transaction details that will be the actual dollar amounts and whether it was subtracted or added to from and to where, and yeah, all of that fun stuff. And with that, we also need the line item type for that transaction detail. So this would be stuff like if you're reading a receipt, it'll be the subtotal, the service fee, the sales tax, the delivery fee, or any number of line items that you could put on a single transaction. What else do we have? Junicus is saying Tari is a response to Electron, but using native web views. The part that was hard is that the native part is in Rust. Interesting. Junicus then said, well, Maui is live in the SDK. True. It's just the tools that is lagging, as far as I know. True. Absolutely true. Zelia said that sounds interesting to Junicus, and although I'm trying to stay as much as possible within .NET C# and for Blazor stuff, HTML and CSS, of course. Okay, so is there anything else that we would want to add to our database, at least up front? This is all subject to change. Right, we actually need a relationship between the recipient and the category, or would it be with the transaction, or both? So what would be some categories? Convenience store, groceries, automotive, not that you could read that. Vehicle maintenance. So, kind of just like categories for things in general. Well, that you would put like in QuickBooks. What categories would you put on this transaction or on this recipient? So vehicle maintenance. What else would be a good category? Bill. Utilities. Although utilities is almost a recipient. TV, phone, rent. I like those a lot. Thank you so much, burst fee. So yeah, it really does look like we would have a category recipient. So another table would be recipient categories. Hello, Thindle. That will relate recipient to one recipient to 0 or more categories. I'm studying for the cert, is what I'm currently doing. So Thindle asked, how are you today? Did you do the cert? Yeah, I'm studying for them, and we'll get there. So what is the actual name of this one? The one that I am studying for is it's in here. Oh yeah, it's just the wait. Oh my gosh. I thought it was a 2 something. Anyway, I think it's this AI 102. But this is the one that I did the build challenge. I don't know if you remember the build challenge. Oh, you don't. So during the most recent Microsoft build, they did a build challenge that pretty much said if you complete one of these learn paths, then you would get a free certification exam, which I did. And then you could use that certification exam. It's pretty much like a coupon or a discount on any one of these certification exams as long as you schedule it before December 31. And I am working on that. That is what I will be doing. I will be taking advantage of the free certification exam. Burst Fee was saying, what about taking the quarter, month, and year in extra columns for expense reports? That's something to keep in mind, but I don't think that that would be in the database. That would be something that well, if it is in the database, it's a view. But right now we're looking at collecting and storing data and then being able to retrieve it. But to create expense reports, that would be a recipient, probably a recipient with a category of expense report or something. And the date of the transactions would be the thing that we use to split up whether the expense report or what quarter, etc. Drill up, drill down, everything we need to do from there. So that said, you just reminded me one important thing that we might have are scheduled transactions. And a scheduled transaction, which I don't know if that's on screen anymore. Okay, a scheduled transaction would be something that has a recurrence. It could be one time, it could be a million times. It could be not a million times, sorry. It could be once, it could be bi-weekly, bi-monthly, weekly, etc., which means that we will also, and then like some kind of int column that lets us know day number. And so this day number would represent different things depending on the recurrence type. So that means we're going to have a table of recurrence type. So day number would be something like if we're doing weekly or bi-weekly, then the day number would be the weekday number, where, I don't know, 0 is Sunday. We'll probably use the day enum for that. Payee. Payee is a good one too. However, okay, so here's the thing. We'll have different transaction types as well. So we may have a transaction where they are paying you. So this could be something like your occupation, your salary, your paycheck. Yeah, where you yourself are the payee. Okay. Yeah, but the thing is that your account would be the target in that case. So does that mean that when we add an account, we will also add a payee of your account? I don't like the implications for the way that the relationships would work there. We'll think about that some more. Because that means that in our transaction table, the there would need to be a relationship to the account table in that payee column as well, which means that the ID from the account table would need to be the same ID that's in the payee column. President Nasher says I would keep payroll separate from accounts receivable. Yeah, that is true. So we'll keep coming up with these ideas. We'll explore them. We'll make sure that this database works good for the case where your account is the one receiving money, and another case where what just happened? Oh, I was like, what's going on over here? The primary case of this app, which is your account is paying to another account. Burst Fee says maybe you want to link a scanned email bill. Yeah, so that's already way too far beyond the scope. We're just thinking about the underlying basic database structure for being able to track accounts, transactions, things that we're paying for, things that we're receiving payments from into those accounts. So let's say that you have an account type that is your savings account, and then an account type that is your checking account, and you're transferring money between your savings and your checking. So then the primary account that's in that transaction is your savings account. Your checking account. Did I say checking to savings? Anyway, you're going from checking to savings. So you're going from your checking account, and then the payee is your savings account. But the way that I actually do that is in two transactions. And so one transaction is a from checking to savings, where the payee is savings to savings. So it's not the actual savings account, it's just to savings. So I'm not trying to make this like yeah, okay. Let's lay down some ground rules real quick. This is not going to be an official 100%. You need to get the terminology right. You need to get the standard operating procedure for managing accounts, for doing ledger balancing, you need to do all of the principles of finance and what's the other one? Accounting. This is just like, this is an app that we're going to use to track our own personal accounts and savings. Yeah. This is just a little helper tool to do a full stack Blazor web development process. So don't get too caught up in the details of, oh, well, you're doing that in a way that is not 100% right for how you're supposed to do finance and budgeting and stuff. We're coming up with this on our own, using our own intuition, and also having fun. So Thindle wants us to absolutely know that bookkeeping must be done like this. You have a transaction with two transaction rows, minus for savings, plus for checking, they must equal 0. So all transactions are balanced. Yes. So that you're having flashback nightmares. This was supposed to be fun. Oh gosh. Now you can't see the bottom of this. Give me this back. Okay. So that aside, let's keep going. Let's not try to be too. So, the whole point behind the brainstorming process is to be loose, is to not try to get things 100% right. It'd be nice to, but we're just brainstorming. We're coming up with things that we might want in the database and ways to structure it. Ideas. I'm an idea man, Chuck. So yes, for a account to account transaction, it would be, and that's kind of what I was saying out loud. It would be from one uh, a and again, I'm not going to use the terms because I don't know the terms correctly. So I can't say a debit from one account and a credit to the other because it's going to be different whether you're doing accounts receivable or accounts payable, and I never get them straight. It's always the opposite of what I think. So with that in mind, we're just saying it from your first account that you're removing money from. It's going to be a transaction that says that account, and then the payee type is to another account. Ooh, saying that out loud. So this is generally bad idea. Unless we normalize it one more. Yeah, just ignore debit and credit, do plus minus. So we can have at first an optimal, which is supposed to say optional. An optional yeah, that's why I need a better name for this than payee. Ref account number. So instead of that, we could have a transfer table that is used for handling going from one of your accounts to another one of your accounts. And that transfer table can have the actual transaction. Oh, but the problem is that there would be, yeah, there could be two. So the, yeah, I wish I had better terms for this. From transaction ID. Oh my gosh, I can't. Transaction ID. Counterpart. That's a good one. Counterpart. And then the to transaction ID. And this way we can relate a pair of transactions as a transfer. I like that. I like that a lot. So we're going with that for now. Again, all subject to change. Yeah, not going there. Not necessarily. Wait, maybe. Okay, Junicus, probably both. Hello, Zotralord. Probably both. So there would be a transaction type that we could have, which is something that has, is it a deposit? Is it a withdrawal? But I would put that in maybe line item type or category. New project. Who dis? I mean, what's this? So we're doing a financial management tracker, and it's very easy to do a sum on that. Yeah, that's what the transaction detail table is for, Thindle. So one transaction could have multiple line items if you want to track down that far. Yes, it is a stream project. Absolutely, Ultralord. So we're doing a full stack Blazor development project, targeting both Blazor Server and Blazor WebAssembly, having our UI in a completely separate library so that when we are ready to, we can add a MAUI project on top of that and target Android, iOS, Windows, macOS, and Tizen. So you can do your financial tracking on your watch. Actually, you know what would be cool? Is when we're deep into, so I'm not writing this down because again, this is too much into the, yes, it is a Git repo. Bang project if you want to see it. If you have like watches in the future are going to have their own little cameras. You know they are. Or your smartphone already has a camera. So scan your receipt and then that does the thing for you. But then we're making QuickBooks, which is okay. But you have your watch and you pay with your watch and then you have the app installed on your watch so that it receives whatever transaction happens and it picks up the details and then automatically logs it in this thing's API. So there's already ways to pay with your watch, pay with your phone, and pay with your credit card. Yay. And I have a slash in the... So yeah. So anyway, I think that this is good for the database portion of it so far. So let's actually sketch out these tables. And then once we do this, we will fix it. We'll make it better. So let's make a box for each table. What is a template? Brainstorming, problem solving, designing, research. ER diagram? ER diagram? No? No. Okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that. We'll just make some boxes. So a transfer transaction would be something like transaction type transfer, date today, payee null, memo, money moved, moved money foo, and it has two transaction entries, right? But how do you associate those two transactions with each other? Right now, you're manually entering in all of the information yourself. That's the initial plan of this app, trying to make it simple, trying to make it straightforward. But yeah, Junicus, in your case, how would you say that this debit from this account was the one that put the money into this account? And that's why I have transfer as its own table with the two transaction IDs that have the two different accounts associated with them. But then that means that there is a parent ID table, and not parent ID table, parent ID column that isn't used for all transactions. In fact, it's null for just about all transactions. And so normalization tells me that if there's a column that is mostly null, then you would only populate the values for that column in a separate table. Yes, bill planning and reminder. So that's this scheduled transaction table here. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. So the transaction detail then uh, is the table that you're talking about that has this transfer type or type in it. And that's what I'm calling the line item type. So line item type would be transfer. But still, you said that the payee in the transaction table itself would be null or recipient or whatever. So yeah, let's just draw some of these tables out and then maybe we'll get a clearer picture and then I'll be able to add in your suggestions to that. So I'm just going to make a bunch of boxes. ER diagram time. I was hoping that whiteboard just had some ER diagrams built in. That'd be nice. But yeah, I'm not dismissing your idea, Junicus, by the way. We're going to sketch it out and then see if we can fit your idea into this diagram. So for now, let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tables. 11. And then sometimes this is going to allow me to snap and make it pretty. Sometimes it's not. Yeah. But well, that's the thing though. When I read words, I see pictures. So I wouldn't quite say that chat is not graphic. I mean, sometimes you guys are even vulgar. Ha, he's funny. He made a joke. Did you hear it? He's a clever guy. I am sporting a new haircut. My dude. My hair was getting super long, super crazy. And since I haven't been using hair product, gel or I guess I only ever use gel. Since I wasn't using gel, uh, it's just been harder to maintain. Oh my goodness. I hate that. I hate that. Just select these objects and let me move them. Why don't you let me move them? There we go. Okay, see how clean our tables are? Gotta keep the dew fresh. Actually, I just gotta keep it low maintenance for myself because I'm too lazy. You'd think I'd be doing it for all the right reasons. Um, Dang it. I should have put this in all of the tables first. Oh, that's a nice straight line. Why couldn't you just be straight? Why couldn't you just go from left to right horizontally? You can't even the buttons that you would normally use for stuff like holding down shift to do a straight line, they behave differently in whiteboard, which is okay. It's not Photoshop. It's not an actual diagram application. Nor am I expecting it to be, right? Oh my goodness. Whatever. I don't care. That's staying there. I'm not trying too hard. Actually, I am trying too hard, aren't I? You know they make apps to do this, right? Cafe pasta. Copy pasted the squares. I should have. I should have. I'm using whiteboard because I wanted to use my pen, and my pen only works on my mobile studio, which is a separate computer, and I didn't want to have to do a screencast of that computer, so I just used white. I'm like, hey, you know what's a smart idea? I could use whiteboard and do sharing. So when I'm writing like this, I'm actually writing on my mobile studio. Hello, whatever you're called. Can I make this thing go away? Thank you. There it is. Here's a tool that you can use. Hello, science. Yeah, this was just supposed to be something easy and not supposed to be like super formal. But, you know, you can't do that. It has to be formal. It has to be done right. Because if you don't do it right, you're a bad person. That's what my internal audience is telling me. Because why not overcomplicate something when you can? Hello, APOC. APOC is also saying hi to science and to Thindle and to everyone. So yeah, if you guys don't know science, he's awesome. The end. I have no idea what else to say. I'm not as cool as Irish John Games, who's just the best at doing shout outs and praising people, and he's just an awesome person too. But yeah, I don't like overcomplicating things, but I do it anyway. All right, so I'm just going to fill in some names for these places. Oh, you're even better. So we are working on day 2 of our project that we're going to be working on for the next couple of years, which is the financial management application. It's going to be initially a Blazor web project targeting both Blazor WebAssembly and Blazor server only, but we're going to add a Maui project to it with the ability to do various tasks based off of the device that you are using. So if you're using a watch, maybe you're just checking to see if you have the balance to do stuff. We're doing both at the same time. What do you mean server first? We are targeting both at the same time right now. So on this document, here is the project structure where we have a Blazor server application, a Blazor WebAssembly application, that has the client and API server backend. Both of them use a shared UI library. And then I have to explain why I'm doing both, because I am. Okay? I'm doing both. I don't want to explain. I'm too lazy to explain. Actually, to be honest, I really want to test to see what the difference is between the load on the server for doing a server only with something that is probably going to be highly I just don't like explaining my reasons for stuff. That's why I make a decision and I'm like, I thought about this decision and I'm deciding to go that way. It's just a personality trait. But moving on, Blazor server, Blazor WebAssembly has the client and server, and then they both use a shared library, which is going to be all of the models. It's going to be yeah, all of the shared models that are going to be used on both the server side and the client side. A UI project that both Blazor server and Blazor WebAssembly are going to use. A shared server, which Blazor server is going to use, and the server project of Blazor WebAssembly is going to use, and the Maui project is going to use that. and then the database project, which is going to be referenced by the shared server project, and then the models are going to be referenced by the shared project. So this is the database context. These are the database entities. And not only is this going to be the database context, but any views, any triggers, any custom indexes that we create, they're all going to be done in this project as scripts and then used in migrations to generate the database changes. We do have a testing library that will be referencing shared server, I think, if I remember correctly, as well as the UI, because this is a B unit library, which I probably need to write on there. Wait. And now my pen isn't doing what I want it to. Okay. Lowercase b. B unit, which is also using X unit as the actual underlying testing framework. Can you explain why you chose a blue shirt today? My shirt's black. Can you explain why you can't see colors? Because most males only have 2 chromatic receptors. What is it? Oh, I love owls. I love owls so much. I tried to see things your way. You're still an idiot. I have no idea. I was watching a Donald Hoffman interview, who is an awesome guy if you don't know him, and you're into exploring our reality, then he's a good guy to listen to and watch and hear his ideas, even if you disagree with him. But he was talking about just variances in our conscious experiences, and one of them being that like males can't see the same richness of color because we have limited color receptors, and across some of us there's even only one color receptor, and or whatever they're called, and then in females most of them have 3, and some have even been found to have 4, and so we experience colors differently in our conscious experiences, which is super fun to think about. But that's not what my stream is about. My stream is about writing software. I'm going colorblind. His name is Donald Hoffman, if you are interested. Okay, so this is Junicus's design, which I haven't even been able to finish drawing mine out. Can I see it online? This file does not have a preview. I'm not exactly sure where that is. I might need to answer my door real quick. I'll be right back. Ooh, poisoned food delivered to my doorstep. Okay. Ooh. Yeah, so I would have to download Draw.io and then install it. But anyway, I'm just gonna go ahead and fill this in real quick using the information from this screen. Shouldn't have ran up the stairs. Okay, so we're gonna have account type. We're gonna call it payee. Oh, draw online is, or draw IO is online. So then why didn't you share the actual draw IO link instead of the document itself? Oh, their share button is a file link. That's not cool. That's mean. How about Figma? Payee, category. To the Google Drive. Yeah, it sent it to my OneDrive. Or it sent it to your OneDrive and gave me access to it. Did I already say transaction? Transaction detail. Line item type. Scheduled transaction. And again, maybe we'll have a transfer. This table might be replaced with Junicus's approach. No Google, only Microsoft. This is the way, says Ultralord. I'm sure that I missed some jet, but recurrence type. Didn't I say 11? That's only 10. What am I missing? Recipient categories. So payee category. Okay, so let's fill in some details. For our account table, obviously, so assume each table has PK ID. Because I don't feel like typing that, or writing it, or even copying and pasting it over and over and over. Ooh, he's doing Figma. They are doing Figma. I don't know if you are he or she. Yeah, so again, let me write out my design to see how close it matches yours and whether my design also makes sense to you. So we have the transaction detail. I don't see the relationship between transaction detail and account. Oh, there it is, account ID. But once again, we only have one account ID. Yeah, and then this transaction ID here is going to be my transaction ID from this table, absolutely. And I'm calling these transaction details line items. Yeah, so let me finish drawing mine out and you'll see that it is quite similar to this. We'll keep this up, so try not to destroy it. But I'm going to leave it open, and you'll hopefully see that we're thinking along the same lines. It's just that instead of the account being in transaction detail, the account is in transaction. Are you saying something about my black shirts? I don't have too much black. What do you mean? Like, I have maybe a total of 5 shirts, maybe 8 shirts that I switch between. A few of them have holes in them. I don't go clothes shopping, so don't really refresh my clothes. Okay, so account is going to have fields like name, starting balance. So I'm going to put starting balance in here with a balance as of date, so that when we do our calculations, we are essentially using the starting balance. We're not tracking a running total. We're going, give me the starting balance, look at all of the transaction details or transactions for that account, and hello, Avidus. All of the transactions for that account, get the sum of transaction detail for all of those transactions, and then add them to starting balance. So Avidus, here's what happened. I don't know if you remember, but starting last week sometime, and I'm wearing a blue shirt, starting last week sometime, I was working on trying to get the title bar, maybe 2 weeks ago, the title bar mess working in a Maui application, and that was stressful, just frustrating. Couldn't get it done. And then a bunch of stuff happened with work. And so I just ended up grabbing onto tufts of my hair and pulling. And the cool thing is that unconsciously, I pulled all of my hair out equally, evenly. I mean, there are a couple of pieces that are maybe longer than others, but it was just so good that I was able to pull it all out fairly evenly. So, anyway. Yeah, like a parrot that's stressed. Is that a skill? Yes. One says in college it is. Hello, Scott. This is an ER well, it's going to be an ER diagram shortly, but right now we're just filling in details of the tables, and then I'll move the boxes around and draw arrows and stuff. It's not an ER diagram program. I'm just using whiteboard to draw this out, so I apologize that I'm not using the appropriate tools, and yeah. So name, starting balance, balance as of date, and there was something that I wanted to do with this. So if we have an account type of yeah, so if we have an account, or yeah, an account, that goes in account type, maybe. How am I going to word this? The thing that I want to track with an account is whether when you pay something from that account, are you increasing the amount of money that is associated with that account, or are you decreasing the amount of money? That is to say, is it an accounts payable or an accounts receivable, I guess. And so if you pay for something with a credit card, the balance on the account goes up. If you pay with something from a checking account or a savings account, the balance on the account goes down. Does that make sense? Yes, exactly. For a transaction, when you do a transaction, is the amount that is associated with that transaction supposed to make the balance go up or down? Yes, there are terms for it. However, if I use one individual term for this, so like if I said increase on credit as a bool, then I'll have to use the terms credit and debit throughout the entire database, essentially. And I don't want to be constrained to using actual terminology when I already have trouble with it. So maybe, and this is how I do it currently with my Access database. I do have a checkbox. Yeah, and I don't want to go into CPA stuff. Um, I do have a checkbox that says increase on transaction or something like that, where if I am actually doing something like tracking a deposit into a savings account, then I use the positive amount. But then if I'm tracking I'm paying for something from this account, then I use a negative number. And then vice versa with a credit card. So for a credit card, the default is to use a positive number to add money. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. We'll get there. We'll just get to it. But Juan Van is saying, my wife is a CPA. She works for a huge company doing compliance with Ernest Young. I think you meant Ernest Young. Cool. All right, we'll come back to that. But Janicus is saying that it would still be known as anything positive going into the account is a credit, anything negative is debit. But that by itself would make a bunch of people mad. And I would have to deal with that every stream. I'm trying to avoid that. Because it's like, if it's an accounts receivable, then a credit makes it go up and a debit makes it go down. If it's an accounts payable, then a credit makes it go down and a debit makes it go up or something. Maybe I actually got that right. We call them pita foods. What's the I stand? Oh, wait, I don't even want to know. So we'll come back to that though. We'll do bool question mark. Do we want to add this? Increase on transaction. We're not going to get to code for a while, Juan Van. I'm sorry. We did the initial setup of the project. So if you want to take a look at the project, as it stands, it's currently on GitHub, open source. It will remain open source, MIT license. But I set up the project structure the way that I would normally set up a project structure, especially one that has a shared component library as the UI and shared server and client. I didn't actually set up the client to use the pages from the UI yet, but we will, because I need to do that for both the server and the client. But right now we're working on the database design, and then we'll do the database implementation using Entity Framework in the project. So that's the current branch that we're on. Okay, so account type will have the name, and this would be something like savings, checking, credit card, and maybe a sort order. Cool. Yeah, that was yesterday's stream. It'll be posted to YouTube today after this stream, and it's already up as a VOD on Twitch. And then this video will be posted tomorrow, but available as a VOD on Twitch immediately after the stream. So if we want, we can have a sort order here. Anything else that we want with account type? So far, no. We're just going to go simple. I think we're going to go simple. We're going to have a name for the payee. And, oh no, the push buttons. Oh my goodness. I want to get through this. So I'm just going to write in stuff, and I will definitely take ideas. Really? Having an initial balance in the account might trigger more people than the amount plus or minus sign. How? I would like to know, because I don't want to trigger people. Are we supposed to have an initial transaction? Is that what you're telling me? So all starting balances will be 0 and then you have an initial transaction? Okay. All right then. I'll make a note for myself. Initial balance will be determined as a transaction. I can read that, okay? You don't have to be able to read it. It's terrible. Terrible, terrible writing. Yeah, and balance is the sum of transactions. That really does get rid of one extra join when actually no, it doesn't, because we still need to join by account. But that's okay. And once again, for anyone wondering, every table has an ID. Okay, so payee has a name, category has a name. And then it also has, where did I put the payee categories? Down here. Okay. So this will be payee ID and category ID. And so this is our many-to-many table from payee to category, so that one payee can have many categories, and one category could belong to many payees. Transaction will have the account ID. And so this is where we're going to look back at Junicus's diagram as well, which is when we're tracking the transaction itself. So we have the date entered and the actual transaction date. And any memos we might associate with that transaction. It is on YouTube. Yeah. YouTube. I did commands in my stream elements. Yatta. All right, so then this will have the transaction ID, and this looks a lot like what you put together, Junicus, where we have the transaction ID. Oh, right. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about You're not going to let me actually drag you, are you? I keep pulling up my radial menu. Are you going to cooperate with me? Do I have to take you outside? There. Okay. I completely forgot about the payee ID. Yes, we are doing EF core code first. Absolutely. So Junica said, I'm hoping that we do EF code first. Thank you, APOC. Thank you for the bits. Are you unhappy with code first? I love code first so much. We're going to have the transaction ID. We're going to have the amount. We're going to have the amount. And is there anything else special? I can't think of any. Line item type. Oh my gosh, yes. That is super important. So for this particular transaction, I keep using the wrong pen button. What is the line item type? Is it a subtotal? Is it sales tax? Is it a service fee, delivery fee, tip, refund, discount, all of those types of things. This is just going to have a name for now. Scheduled transaction. This one's going to be fun because the scheduled transaction is going to have the recurrence type ID from this recurrence type table down here, and I don't know what to call this one, so we can rename this together, but day number, day number, which I have some notes over here saying that day number is going to be dependent on the recurrence type. So I don't like rules like that where if the recurrence type is weekly or biweekly, then the number that is in there is the day number of the week. If it's monthly, then it is the day of month. I need a cron library for that. I don't have experience with cron libraries. Braries. For me, yeah, I just want to stick to plain old databases. A transfer, as I am calling it. Hello, Elliot. How are you on this fantastic Thursday? A transfer is going to have the from account ID and the to account ID and the actual transaction number. Transaction. Right, except that I said that the transaction. So this is where mine breaks down and Junicus's works. At least it makes more sense than this. APOC. APOC has a comment that kind of seemed like it came out of nowhere. But the Atom editor had huge potential, but it seems people are not interested, and GitHub is killing it in the near future. Wow. I don't know if I like calling them from and to transaction IDs in my approach. So once again, we will look at Junicus's. But as I'm reading mine, I don't like it. Mostly because of the naming of these. I like the idea of having a separate table that will relate two transactions to each other as a transfer. Yeah, and if I was using the terms correctly, then I would do stuff like debit transaction and credit transaction. But again, I'm not using those terms because I don't know enough about them. So for now, I'm just going to call it from and to, because that's what the UI is most likely going to look like. Hold on, let me allow this. It doesn't like the word nougat. Why didn't that actually post? Could you repost that? Yeah, so I'm not actually scheduling transactions. That's the thing. I am logging repeating transactions so that the user can see upcoming payments that might happen. They're not going to automatically apply. Okay, I clicked allow. I don't know why it's... So I'm clicking allow and it's not actually letting it. Maybe put a space after the at. And you really don't have to at me. I read all of the chat. In fact, when I see red, it really bothers me. I don't remember what I was saying, but that's going to be, for the most part, my design. So let's just compare. Or hold on, there it goes. There it goes. What didn't you like about this? Pasta. I know that it has trouble with the word nougat, but I think it was because you put at my name, no space, and then the URL. But URLs are definitely allowed. I mean, you've already posted a couple, so you know they're allowed. Okay, let's try to turn this into something that looks like an ER diagram. There, I can move. I didn't think so. I wish there was a way to like tell this thing to group. Once there was a way to group these items. Okay, I'm actually going to zoom out a lot. No, I'm not, because I can't click on things when I zoom out. Summon a biscuit. All right, can I drag one of these? Cool. All right, you go over here. Clicko, clicko. Drag one of these. All right, so transaction and transaction detail belong together. Line item and transaction detail belong together. Oh, right, there's a lot more information that we need in scheduled transaction. So in reading Junicus's statement, I get it not scheduling actual transactions, but a library like quartz.net would help you to schedule the entries into the database, and I would make them a type of pending transaction, not auto apply, because what if you forget to actually pay your bills? I see what you're saying. So when a recurrence scheduled item happens, so when the conditions are met for that thing to happen, it would automatically add the transaction but as pending, right? Which is a field that I completely forgot that we need in the transaction table. But again, I'm not doing automated tasks yet. So I'm not worried about that part. Everything that is going to be entered into the database is going to be entered manually. We can add that complexity later. So scheduled transaction actually kind of requires a couple of things, like the account ID, the payee ID, and maybe a memo or a name for it or something. So because of that, we don't need to put it up there because it's not associated with those. The thing that is our account. So account is probably going to go, what else do we have? Payee ID. I'll put account here. And then I'll put account type to the left of it. And then payee is currently associated with the transaction. Oh my. Oh my, I cannot click on that thing. There. Okay, so payee is associated with the transaction, and payee category is associated with category. Oops. You are singular, payee category. Which is associated with category. Why don't you want to just, thank you. Our scheduled transaction is associated with account and payee. So you are going to go here and recurrence type. Tunicus is like, we're doing a King Kron expression, you piece of shit. We can, just not yet. Transfer. Okay, that goes there. Okay, so back to the current expression. An expression like 0, 12, 15 star star means that the recurring schedule is 12 on the 15th of every month. Okay. It's just that it's easy to find with Google. Okay, I believe you. So then when we get to the point of adding that, then we can Google it or just use your expertise on it already, because right now we're just creating the table structure, the schemas, the database, table. Oh man, kept my this thing. Okay, please allow me to drag. Thank you so much. Now I can't do anything else though. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, all right, you win. So let's zoom in on this. As I mentioned, we're going to have the, oh, dang it, I need the ID. I need the ID rows in all of these tables. That's stupid. That's stupid. Otherwise, how am I supposed to point to what column? Well, I guess it's fine. We know that every table has an ID, and when I'm using an ID here, then that is talking about the table that I'm pointing to's ID. We know that, right? All right. So we have a from transaction ID. And a to transaction ID. But man, that really looks like I'm pointing to account ID. I don't like that. Can I make this box bigger? I can't select with that tool. Dude. Excuse me, can I make you taller? I can make you wider and taller, but not just taller. Oh no. It's done with me. It's like, you know what? You're not doing anything with this table. What are you thinking? You're not doing a thing. All right, I'm not doing a thing with the table. I just put in small letters ID. Here's a little key. You point to ID. You point to ID. And we can have one transaction ID, one from transaction ID, one to transaction ID, to, I'm doing this wrong. We can have many transfers per ID. So one transaction can have I think I just broke it. Okay. Not exactly sure what happened, but something broke. All right, can have many transfers. Good. Simple. Next item up for bid. Account has an ID. Looks like that. Isn't it pretty? This one I can actually select. Can't move it though, but I can select it. Doing, man. There you go. Failed. So annoying. I should have just put the ID in every table. Why didn't I just do that? You missed the N. Just made more work for myself. That's all. No biggie. hello, Tommy. Konnichiwa. ID. And then I need to actually select this thing to get out of select mode, even though holding spacebar is supposed to do that for me. We have a name for this table. We have our payee ID. Well, actually, that could be the primary key for this, payee ID, category ID. But I think I'm still going to define those separately. And now I'll go through and add. What are you doing, mouse? Who hijacked my mouse? Who's hacking me? Surely it's not me with my unsteady hand. Has to be someone else. I can't. Click this. Go here. Good job. All right, so I'm going to put the ID in all of these tables. Lock. Do you like my key? You don't have to like my key. My key's ugly. And again, the transfer is also, like, this ID that I'm putting here on the transfer table is completely optional. I need to get my power cord. And actually, for the transfer table, it's not optional because I can have no, I can't. Yeah, so the ID in the transfer table is optional because I will only ever have one pairing, one unique pairing of from transaction ID and to transaction ID. Yeah. The end. So same thing with the category, payee category table. So we'll make that decision when we get to creating the database using code first. Okay, so now that everyone has an ID, we will draw some lines. So this account ID is associated with that account, and we can have one account with multiple transactions. One button said hello back. Right, and then the account will have the account type ID, which will be associated with, oh no, I missed one, ID. Or we can have one account type has multiple accounts. So you can have multiple savings, multiple checking, multiple credit cards, multiple Roth IRAs, investment, whatever you want to call them. All right, so a transaction detail has one transaction has multiple transaction details. One transaction detail has, or yeah, one transaction detail has one line item type. A one line item type can be long to multiple. Account per hamster. That's the word I was looking for. Oh man. Okay, so then payees. We have a payee ID. So a transaction only has one payee, but one payee can belong to multiple transactions. That's a star, I promise. And then we have our payee categories. Whoa, that's a straight line. My hand slipped. Still not a straight line, but who cares? So the point is that one payee ID, but a payee can belong to multiple categories, and one category ID, multiple. We're almost done. We're almost done. So then a transaction right, this goes to account. So we have an account ID, which goes up here, where we have one account can have multiple scheduled transactions. I think I'm doing some of these wrong. Yes, I am doing this with a pen on a separate computer. And there is a recurrence type. Ooh, thank you so much. I can't tell what that was. Let me look real quick. Navy Techo. Thank you so much for the follow. Really appreciate it. Welcome to the Daily Code Fun. I'm almost done for the day. I just have a couple more lines to draw. And then we'll be good to go. So a recurrence type where one recurrence type can have multiple scheduled types. I need to review this because I'm just doing this now willy-nilly and probably writing things incorrectly. One payee can have multiple scheduled transactions. And I think that's all of the lines. Okay. And that's what the yay was for. Thank you, BG Megar. So this is essentially our current version of the database diagram, the entity relation diagram. We still have an option to go with this. Is there a way for me to copy those objects? Probably not without edit ability. So I'm just going to copy this as a picture and put it in here as an option. For transactions. Because I don't want to lose this. This was Junicus's idea for how we do transaction in the accounting for both an account paying out something to someone else, to a payee, and I can't do words right now because my brain is like, we need to end. I need to get back to work. As well as transfers between accounts. So this database structure looks like it would work for transfers as well as paying payees. I don't quite see it, but I'll look at it some more. And I don't like that there is an account ID per transaction detail, which is essentially a line item on a receipt, which means we'll have a lot of duplicate IDs in the same table, which isn't good for normalization. So for the same transaction ID, we're gonna have to make sure that we keep the account ID the same the whole way down, except in the case of a transfer. And that's why I structured it the way that I did. But we'll consider it. But that's it for me for today. I will be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. We'll continue on. Fridays are still community day, except that I haven't been coming up with any good topics because I am still in transition periods. I guess I didn't really tell you guys what's going on, but at the moment for my workplace, I am currently not allowed to do billable hours. And so I needed to come up with, not needed to come up with, instead I am doing admin time and working on a certification. I'd be happy to. Yes, absolutely. 100 million%. If any of you have any topics for Community Day, so on Fridays, what I like to do is invite people into one of the Discord voice channels. You can show off anything that you're currently working on, specifically .NET related, and then if not .NET related, then technology related, and if not technology related, then whatever it is that you happen to be working on, but in that preferred order. So I have had that for a while. I haven't been really getting many takers on that. And what I've been trying to do in place of it when no one else has approached me with any ideas that they want to show on stream is I tried to come up with something that we can talk through together. So some topic that I choose, like maybe we explore Azure Functions, because I want to learn more about Azure Functions. But that just seems like my normal daily stream at that point in time. So I've just been doing my normal daily stream otherwise. Excuse me. But yeah, I would be absolutely happy for you to show off HTMX. That sounds like a great thing that we can do tomorrow. I'll be here from 10:30. You guys can't see me. I'll be here from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time tomorrow. And we'll do more of the financial tracker project, but we'll also have community day, which means we may have other presenters, other people just hopping into Discord and chatting, talking about whatever. But until then, I will catch you guys on the flip side because I'm going to go back to studying for the certification. Cool. Enjoy. I will see you guys the next time you're around. And yeah, check out the video in YouTube after 24 hours. I'll be posting yesterday's video in a couple minutes. All right, ciao for now. It's in the description of the YouTube videos. That's a good thought, though. It's just that, yeah, we work on different projects, Juan Van. So Juan Van said you should add a link to Git on the homepage. I guess during the playback, you'd be able to do Bang or see people do Bang project and then see the actual project on GitHub. But yeah, I mean, if you go to my GitHub, which is on my homepage, then you'll be able to see that. Anyway, you can't hear me over the music. Ciao. Except for on YouTube. You don't get music. I apologize. One day I'll add music to the videos. Okay. Bye for now.